Welcome back to our podcast. New trip, new episode. We are a group of MBT students from La Salle, Barcelona, and this time we have landed in Chicago for our study tour.
So get ready, because today we are not just talking about where we went, but about how Chicago tasted, sounded, looked, felt, and smelled.
During this trip, we want to experience the city in a different way, not only by visiting places, taking pictures, or going from one activity to another, but by paying attention to how Chicago feels through our five senses. Because when you travel, you don't only remember that what you saw. You also remember the food, your taste, the sounds, and the streets, the smells of places, the feeling and the weather on your skin, and all of these smells, details that make a city feels alive.
So, in this podcast, each of us will explore Chicago through one sense and compare it, in some way, with our experience back in Barcelona. I will talk about taste, Edward will focus on sound, Luke will talk about sight, Jim will explore touch, and Alejandro will cover smell.
Together, we will try to understand Chicago, not just a city on a map, but as a complete sensory experience. So let's start our journey through the five senses of Chicago.
So my sense is touch, and for me, touch is not only about what we touch with our hands, but about how a place feels on your body. Here in Chicago, especially at Lewis University in Romeoville, the first thing I noticed is the air. We came in summer, so it's not the freezing Chicago everyone talks about, but you can still feel the wind. Sometimes it feels like the wind has personality, like it arrives before you do. On campus, that wind feels fresh. You feel the soft grass, the warm pavement during the day, and the cooler air at night. The whole campus feels very open and physical. And then, the best touch experience, the bonfires at night. You feel the heat on your face, but your back is still cold, so you end up turning around like a human rotisserie chicken. Compared to Barcelona, where touch is more about sun, sea and terraces, here is more about contrast. Wind, grass, cool air and fire. So for me, Chicago, through touch, feels alive. Basically, it touches you with wind, grass and fire. Which sounds like a Netflix series, but it is true.
About the sound sense, every city has a unique sound. When I arrived in Chicago from Barcelona, the first big surprise was the emergency sirens. In Barcelona, sirens have a simple high-low sound that helps you know where the ambulance is coming from, but in Chicago, sirens are an aggressive, continuous wall of noise. They use special low sounds that you don't just hear, you can actually feel the vibration in your chest. The second difference is the traffic. In Chicago, you constantly hear the heavy metallic roar of an elevated train, the L, passing over your head. Barcelona is very different. The background noise, there is a constant hum at ground level, caused by thousands of motorbikes and scooters moving through the streets. However, Chicago has a great surprise. If you walk on the main shopping street, the noise from cars and shops is very loud. But the moment you turn a single corner to the left, all the noise disappears. It becomes completely quiet and calm, right in the center of the city. Barcelona is not like this. In Barcelona, you will always hear people and life around every single corner.
Now I'm talking about sight. The first thing that caught my attention in Chicago was the size of the buildings. They are much taller and bigger than in Barcelona, and everything feels very open and wide. In this video, you can really see how huge the buildings are. And I also noticed that Chicago has a lot of green areas and trees everywhere. Even in the middle of the city, you can see parks and nature, and I really like that. This picture shows how green and beautiful the city can be. Another last thing I found very interesting are the fire escapes on the buildings. They are very common here and look very typical in the US. In Barcelona, we don't have it. So, they really surprised me. For me, Chicago feels bigger, greener, and more open than Barcelona.
So one of the things that surprised me the most when we got to Chicago was the smell. When you live in Barcelona, you are just used to how the city smells. You know, that mix of beach humidity, sea salt, and coffee from the terraces in the morning. It's a very familiar scent. But Chicago is totally different. The first thing you notice is the air. It's much colder and cleaner because of the lake. But at the same time, you get this constant metallic industrial smell from the lines of the elevated train. The loop, it gives the downtown a very specific urban vibe. So one of these things that surprised me the most when we got to Chicago was the smell. When you live in Barcelona, you are just used to how the city smells. You know, that mix of beach humidity, sea salt, and the coffee from the terraces in the morning. It's very familiar scent. But Chicago is totally different. The first thing you notice is the air. It's much colder and cleaner because of the lake. But at the same time, you get this constant metallic industrial smell from the lines of the elevated train, the loop. It gives the downtown a very specific human urban vibe. The second thing is the food environment. In Barcelona, you usually just smell fresh bread from bakeries or coffee. But in Chicago, the smell of food is everywhere. For example, some streets have this subtle smell of butter and sweet corn, almost like movie popcorn, which is why I took a few videos of these streets. But what you really smell as you walk by the various restaurants, especially the heavy aroma of grilled meat, burgers, and American barbecue, is very rich, savory smell that follows you around. And finally, there's the transport and the alleys. The Barcelona metro always has the classic underground smell of dust and old brakes. Here, since the train is above ground, the smell stays in the back alleys. It smells like truck, exhaust, asphalt, and that warm steam coming out of the grit on the floor, just like you see in American movies. So yeah, in the end, Barcelona smells like a sea and coffee, and Chicago smells more like trains, grilled food, and popcorn. It's crazy how much a city can change just by the way it smells.
If we talk about the sense of taste, Chicago is a city that doesn't hold back. The food here is bold, filling, and full of personality. One of the most iconic dishes is deep dish pizza. This is not your typical thin pizza. It's thick, loaded with cheese, rich tomato sauce, and a crust that feels almost like a pie. It's heavy, but every bite is worth it. Then there's Portillo's, famous for its Chicago-style hot dog. It comes with mustards, pickles, tomatoes, onions, etc., but no ketchup. That's almost unacceptable. Another classic spot is the Billy Goat Tavern, known for its simple but very flavorful burgers. It's a straightforward food, no extras, just strong taste. And for something sweet, you can't miss Jared's popcorn. They mix caramel and cheddar cheese popcorn, a combination that sounds strange but works surprisingly well. In comparison, Barcelona offers a different experience. The focus there is more on freshness and sharing. Tapas let you try many flavors in small portions, and dishes like paella reflect a more balanced Mediterranean style. Overall, Chicago is about bold flavors and big portions, while Barcelona is about variety and lightness. Two very different ways to experience taste.
It is louder, bigger, and more intense, but also very open and full of life.
We saw tall buildings, green spaces, and very unique city style.
We also noticed very strong smells, different sounds, and a lot of impressive details everywhere.
And of course, the food gave us a completely different experience too.
So, Barcelona and Chicago are different, but both have their own beauty and personality. Thank you for listening.